I tell people I've been around 4 decades, but literally 4 decades in sales. I've been in the business to business sales space. I started as a teacher and I became a single mom and I couldn't afford to raise my family on my teacher's salary. So I got into the world of technology sales in my early 20s. And from there, I did that for about 16 years. And then I launched my own company, a sales consulting business, sales strategy. And I've been doing that for over 20 years now.
Tell us about why you made that transition to jump out, and how will other leaders know when it's time?
I would say it was a lot different back then because if you became a consultant 20 plus years ago, it meant that you couldn't get hired, basically. So,
I think some people still carry that. I have to be honest. I
yeah,
call it putting on the skeevy vendor hat. Like,
yeah,
oh, you don't have a corporate title anymore. Here's your hat.
right. Or they say I'm fractional. But I really I was tired of corporate because my last corporate job, I loved it so much. I did it for 4 years. And first I built an inside sales team. This was when I moved to Boston, when my son was going to college. And then I created a corporate university within those 4 years, within that time frame. And the company that was acquiring us ultimately already had a corporate university. So people were not very creative and they just figured I wouldn't want to do anything else. So I actually got downsized for the first time in my whole career. And I realized that it was a guy in a corner office who didn't even know me, who basically pushed for me to, to be downsized. And I just thought, who needs that guy? And, and so I thought, I can help people on my own. They became my first client. And I had a beautiful training room in downtown Boston that I got to use until I moved back to the West Coast. I want everyone to understand what an amazing career sales is, because even if you only did it for 2 years, you did a business to business sales career, 1 year isn't quite enough because you can kind of get yourself through 1 year, but to get through a couple of years, it's up and down. It can be a hard grind depending on the role, depending on the company, depending on the products and services, the timing in the world. So I like for people to do this for a couple of years because it will help you in your personal communications, will help you in your personal negotiations. So anything you do in your life. And if you decide to start your own company, you're going to be your first salesperson. Got news for people that don't get that. They think things will just sell themselves, and they don't.
It's the number one reason. Yeah, well, new businesses, small businesses fail. It's not because you don't have a great idea or a great product, it's that you can't sell it.
Yeah.
So I can't think of a career where a start in sales doesn't help.
Yeah, I can't either. There's no downside. So that's the first thing, I guess. Well, I grew up in a kind of dysfunctional family, which a lot of us do. And I was lucky that I got to get time working for my grandmother, who had a clothing store, and she was very successful. So she became my role model. And I didn't realize how that would connect later on, years later. I didn't understand what I was learning. But I just watched everything she did and saw her stand up to men, which was really great. She was about the only woman I ever saw that happen. And I learned a lot.
I want to hear more about that in a minute. I'm coming back to that, okay?
Okay.
So you watched your grandmother. She was a role model. She worked hard. She stood up for herself. She stood up to men.
And then I became a teacher because that's what I wanted to do. And then I also got in a relationship and got pregnant, and there was physical abuse in the relationship. And so when I left that relationship for our lives, I couldn't afford to work as a teacher. It paid practically minimum wage. So that's when I wound up thinking about sales because of my grandmother and because technology was booming back at that time when I was in my early 20s. And so I jumped into a straight commission job, and, I never looked back. And within a few years, I had bought a house, and we defied the odds. I bought a house just a few years after women were even allowed to have credit in our own names. If you can imagine that, you had to have a man sign for you if you wanted to get a credit card. And you know who gave me a credit card before anybody else? Nordstrom. That's why I love Nordstrom to this day, because I happen to work for them for a part-time, but they extended credit to me, and that's how I started to build my credit.
I love it. Lori, that moment of leaving, I don't think that most of us can internalize or even glimpse the fear that must have gone into that moment. We've all seen the TV shows, and we've all seen the women and people. It doesn't have to just be women, but we've seen the people too scared to leave. How did you gather the courage?
Well, you just get more tired of it than you are scared. So you get to the point where it's like, yeah, whatever, if something happens, it happens, but I can't take this anymore. And so I was more afraid for my son being hurt than I was for myself, unfortunately. However, that was enough fuel to get me to get moving and to not come back that time. Because that's another thing that happens in domestic violence, is that women tend to come back more than once for a lot of reasons. And this was the last time.
You were afraid not for yourself getting hurt, but for your son. And you were tired. When you decided to start championing for women in sales, it was because you were tired of watching all the women get passed over or pushed out. And when you decided to leave and protect your family and start with nothing, it is because you were tired of taking it over and over again. If you look at that connection, what do you want to tell people about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it just didn't make sense for women getting passed over, or just not enough women going into sales. So many women didn't even know there was a career called business to business selling, and the men aren't going to tell you about it because they're making all the money. They had a nice little thing going on.
Lori, I don't think that you said that you didn't know that championing for women in sales would become your legacy. You've been doing it now for 20 years, and your name is synonymous with this movement. And for so many people out there, they want to find that passion. They're reaching the stage of their career where it's time to shift from chasing success to significance. But they don't know what their thing is. And what I learned from you here today was, what are you tired of? Right? What are you just sick of eye rolling about and think maybe I can make a difference? Any words of wisdom for those looking for that passion project?
Yeah, I suggest trying different things. I mean, we moved geographically 3 years ago, and that got me outside more, and it got me around arts more and things that I really like. I hadn't planned on that. It was just a side benefit, but don't just sit still. Get out, move around, go places, get outside of your comfort zone, get out of your bubble, especially if you're in a corporate role. Get out of that bubble and meet new people. I mean, Legacy is a great place to do that. I've met some of the most incredible people that
we attract gorgeous human beings, don't we? I love it.
Amazing.
Lori, last question. I want to double down on the discussion about your legacy. What do you hope that leaders in the workplace are still doing 20 years from now, thanks to your influence?
Well, I want to see more women in leadership roles. And I think if we had that, we'd have different culture in companies, and we'd have more women in sales. Women are really great. Many women are really great in sales, and we bring some amazing tendencies. Again, we're kind of generalizing, but these are things that we don't always see. when we have a homogeneous team. So I just want to encourage people to be open and to be big picture, and don't think you have all the answers. When you think you have all the answers, that's when I run, because I don't want to be around people that think they have it all figured out. We're humans in a people business. We can't know everything. So we've got to be open and have fun, right? We have an awful lot of fun.
Run from the leaders who act like they have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And what I hear you telling your grandsons is that they enter the world of business, seek the 50%, gentlemen, right? Seek it. Be curious, get outside of your comfort zones, and champion the diversity to 50%.
Yeah.
That's when we know you get to retire, right? When we hit that number.
That'll
I'm very happy we get to keep you around until then.
Me too.
You inspired me to start my passion project about women. And everyone assumed at the beginning that we were going to be competitors and we'd be all mad, right? They were looking for the girl fight.
It was so stupid.
You work with so many different groups as advisors. Go to page 2 of Lori Richardson's LinkedIn profile and look at how many groups and companies she champions. And I appreciate that very much about you.
Thank you.
I'm lucky to call you friend.
Me too. Me too.
So ditch Thanksgiving and let's go hit those Christmas markets.
I know. I got to work on that. I'm working on it.